What happens when a woman who once stood quietly behind the scenes suddenly becomes the center of one of reality TV's most shocking scandals? For years, Caryn Chandler was simply known as the hardworking manager on Roloff Farms, the woman who kept things running smoothly on Little People, Big World. She was efficient, charming, and seemed to have Matt Roloff's full trust. But as time went on, her story took an unexpected turn. When Caryn went from employee to girlfriend, her name exploded across headlines. Suddenly, she wasn't just part of the farm, she was part of the Roloff family drama. Viewers watched as she transformed from background staff to the woman standing beside Matt, living a life many believed was built on love, hard work, and mutual respect. Fame, fortune, and romance seemed to crown her journey with success. But behind that polished smile and the carefully edited TLC scenes, a darker story began to take shape. Former co-workers whispered of manipulation. Fans began questioning her motives. And now, shocking allegations suggest that Caryn's success may not have been as innocent as it appeared. Rumors of lies, hidden transactions, and even possible fraud have shaken her once glowing reputation. How did Caryn Chandler, once beloved by fans and protected by Matt Roloff, find herself accused of deception and betrayal? In this investigation, we'll peel back the layers of her carefully curated public image to uncover the truth about what really went wrong. From her days managing Roloff Farms to the moment her alleged lies began unraveling everything she built. This is the story of how Caryn Chandler's career may have reached its breaking point. Stay tuned because by the end of this video you'll see how one woman's ambition, love, and secrets collided, and why some believe Caryn's empire is finally crumbling. Hello viewers, welcome back to my channel. For Roloff family latest news update, please subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon. When viewers first met Caryn Chandler on Little People, Big World, she wasn't a star, she was a staff member quietly helping run the farm's famous pumpkin season. Behind the scenes, Caryn's job was simple yet critical. She managed the operations that kept thousands of visitors happy each year. From coordinating staff to organizing family photo ops, Caryn quickly became known as the woman who made Roloff Farms' busiest season run like clockwork. First, she was just another friendly face on the team. But as the years went by, Caryn's efficiency, charisma, and closeness to the Roloff family began to attract attention. Matt Roloff, the family patriarch, often praised her work ethic and her understanding of the business. Slowly, Caryn transitioned from being an employee to becoming someone Matt relied on deeply, not just for management decisions, but for emotional support during difficult times. For longtime fans, this shift didn't go unnoticed. The chemistry between Matt and Caryn seemed to grow with every passing season. What began as a professional relationship soon took on a more personal tone, one that would change the entire dynamic of the Roloff family. While some viewers admired Caryn for her ambition and dedication, others saw her rise as suspiciously timed. Rumors began swirling online that Caryn was getting too close to Matt while he was still married to Amy. Though neither Caryn nor Matt publicly admitted to crossing any lines before the divorce, the emotional tension between Amy and Caryn was obvious to anyone watching. Amy, who had spent decades building Roloff Farms alongside her husband, appeared uncomfortable around Caryn. Fans noticed subtle body language, tense smiles, sharp tones, or awkward silences whenever the two women shared the screen. The farm, once a symbol of family unity, was slowly becoming a stage for unspoken rivalry. By the time Matt and Amy officially divorced in 2016, Caryn's presence had already expanded far beyond her original role. She was no longer just the farm's manager. She was Matt's confidant, his partner, and eventually his girlfriend. This transition didn't sit well with many longtime viewers, who felt Amy had been replaced not just in Matt's life, but in the very heart of the show. As Caryn's influence grew, so did her visibility. She began appearing more frequently on camera, taking part in family discussions, and even helping make decisions about the farm's future. For some, Caryn represented a new chapter, a fresh start for Matt after years of struggle. But for others, she was a symbol of betrayal, the woman who took over the Roloff legacy without earning it. Fans started debating fiercely online. Was Caryn simply doing her job and finding love naturally, or had she strategically positioned herself for power and fame? The conversations were heated, and they divided the Little People, Big World community in a way no storyline ever had before. Still, one thing was undeniable. Caryn knew how to handle the spotlight. Even as criticism grew, she maintained her composure, smiling on camera, posting carefully curated social media updates, and avoiding direct conflict with Amy. Her calm demeanor made it difficult to tell whether she was genuinely kind or simply calculated. Meanwhile, Matt seemed happier than ever. He credited Caryn with helping him regain motivation and direction after his divorce. Together, they expanded the farm's events, improved visitor experiences, and strengthened the brand. But behind that success, fans sensed growing cracks, particularly when it came to the family's unity. Zach and Jeremy Roloff, Matt and Amy's sons, appeared hesitant to embrace Caryn fully. Although they were polite in public, viewers speculated that there was lingering resentment about how quickly Caryn had integrated herself into their father's life. Over time, these small fractures would grow into major divides that shaped the future of both the family and the show itself. As the years went on, Caryn's name became inseparable from Roloff Farms. Her influence extended into business decisions, public appearances, and even family relationships. What started as a seasonal job had turned into a position of undeniable power, one that made Caryn both respected and feared among fans and insiders alike. By the end of the 2010s, Caryn had gone from managing the pumpkin patch to managing a public image. And for someone who started out behind the scenes, that was no small feat. But power on Roloff Farms always came at a price, and soon, Caryn would discover that the same spotlight that elevated her could just as easily expose her. For years, Caryn Chandler appeared to be living every fan's dream, a woman who found love, success, and stability in the spotlight of one of TLC's longest-running shows. She had the fame, the cameras, the attention, and the man who built an empire from scratch. But fame, as they say, is a double-edged sword. And for Caryn, the glimmer of reality television would soon turn into the glare of public scrutiny. It started small, a few whispers online, curious comments under Roloff family photos. Fans began noticing that Caryn seemed to be taking on a bigger and bigger role in the family business. She wasn't just Matt's girlfriend anymore. She was appearing in farm meetings, helping make major event decisions, and speaking publicly about plans for Roloff Farms' future. And while some applauded her involvement, others grew suspicious. After all, this was the same woman who had once worked as the farm's longtime manager, an employee turned romantic partner. That line between professional and personal was starting to blur. Then came the turning point, the moment when the story changed forever. In 2023, as talk of the $3.5 million farm sale began to dominate headlines, fans, and even close followers of Little People, big world started to question everything. Who was really behind the decision to sell off part of the Roloff legacy? Was Matt acting alone, or was Caryn the silent force shaping the deal? Online forums lit up with speculation. Some claimed Caryn had talked Matt into it, convincing him that selling part of the land would give them both freedom, financial and emotional, from years of family conflict. But others saw something darker at play. Rumors swirled of financial manipulation, of Caryn allegedly using her influence over Matt to secure her own financial future. The idea was shocking, that a woman who once managed pumpkin season profits could now be steering multi-million-dollar decisions behind the scenes. It wasn't long before longtime fans began digging deeper. They pointed to social media clues, photos of Caryn in meetings, property listings that appeared shortly after her comments about simplifying life, and cryptic posts that hinted she was ready to move on from the farm entirely. The more they searched, the more questions arose. Why was Caryn listed as part of certain business filings related to the farm's operations? Why did Matt seem so determined to sell to outsiders, even when his own children wanted to buy? And most of all, why did it feel like the once tight-knit Roloff family had fractured beyond repair? Every public appearance now carried tension. Matt and Caryn's smiles looked forced. Amy's polite small talk seemed rehearsed. Zach and Tori distanced themselves, even skipping family events that once defined the show's warmth. By now, fans weren't just watching a reality series, they were watching a slow unraveling of trust, loyalty, and legacy. One viral Reddit thread summed it up perfectly. Caryn didn't just manage the farm, she managed to change everything about it. Those words struck a chord. Because in the eyes of many, Caryn had gone from background character to power player, and that rise to power came with a cost. Suddenly, headlines began calling her the most controversial figure in LPBW history. YouTubers, podcasters, and entertainment outlets started digging into her past. They uncovered old work records, salary details, and even past employee testimonials that painted a more complex picture of Caryn's early years on the farm. Some claimed she was ambitious, even ruthless, when it came to making business decisions. Others described her as manipulative, saying she knew how to position herself in the right place at the right time. And as the rumors spread, the public narrative began to shift. The once beloved farm manager was now being accused of tearing apart a family empire. The warm smiles seen on television were being replaced by whispers of deceit and greed. The fame that once lifted Caryn to new heights was now turning toxic. Because in the world of reality TV, perception is everything. And when that perception cracks even a little, it can destroy careers overnight. And for Caryn Chandler, the cracks were beginning to show. When the first whispers of financial misconduct surfaced, few believed that someone as polished and composed as Caryn Chandler could be involved in anything unethical. But soon, rumors turned into reports, and reports into accusations. Allegations began to swirl online suggesting that certain business dealings tied to Roloff Farms may not have been as transparent as fans once thought. Fans noticed inconsistencies in the timeline of the $3.5 million property sale, with some pointing out how rapidly Caryn's influence over farm operations seemed to grow, right as key family members, including Zach and Amy, were pushed to the sidelines. Online sleuths began questioning whether Caryn's role went beyond personal, whether she had quietly positioned herself as a power broker behind the scenes. As social media chatter intensified, talk of fraud and misrepresentation started circulating. Some fans accused Caryn of manipulating financial details surrounding Roloff Farms' transition, while others speculated she may have encouraged Matt to hide specific aspects of the deal from the rest of the family. Although no official charges were confirmed, the shadow of suspicion was enough to spark a firestorm. The emotional toll on the Roloffs was undeniable. Amy, who had built the farm from the ground up, reportedly felt betrayed watching what she once called her safe place become a symbol of division and distrust. Zach and Tori, already distant from Matt, seemed to withdraw even further, rarely visiting and refusing to take part in family business decisions. Behind closed doors, tensions grew unbearable. Matt's attempts to defend Caryn only fueled more controversy. He spoke publicly about her innocence, calling the allegations ridiculous internet lies, but fans weren't convinced. Every word he said seemed to make things worse, painting him as a man blinded by loyalty, unable or unwilling to see the chaos unraveling around him. On forums and fan pages, the response was brutal. Viewers demanded TLC take action. Comments flooded social media. Fire Caryn. She ruined the Roloff legacy. The show isn't the same with her in control. For longtime followers of Little People, Big World, it wasn't just about the drama, it was about the sense of betrayal they felt watching a beloved family crumble under what they believed were lies disguised as love. By mid-season, the backlash reached a boiling point. Petitions calling for Caryn's removal began circulating online, gathering thousands of signatures. Even former fans of Matt began questioning his judgment, accusing him of choosing romance over reason. What had once been a story about overcoming obstacles had turned into a saga of distrust, greed, and heartbreak, with Caryn Chandler at the center of it all. In the midst of the outrage, Caryn maintained her composure publicly, smiling on social media, posting vacation photos, and pretending as if nothing had changed. But behind that polished image, insiders claimed the pressure was mounting. Rumors of legal consultations, network warnings, and even contract renegotiations hinted that TLC itself was growing uneasy about the direction things were heading. For the Roloff family, the damage was done. The love story that once captivated audiences had morphed into a cautionary tale, one about how fame and fortune can twist even the purest intentions into something unrecognizable. As Caryn Chandler's reputation began to crumble, whispers of something far more serious started to emerge, whispers that she was facing potential fraud-related allegations. What began as rumors on fan forums and tabloid headlines soon spiraled into a full-blown online investigation. People weren't just speculating about her personal life anymore. They were asking real questions about her business practices, her relationship with Matt Roloff, and the mysterious financial dealings tied to the farm's sale and her own ventures. According to several reports circulating online at the time, Caryn was allegedly linked to misrepresentation of ownership rights and conflicts of interest involving the Roloff Farms sale and its promotional partnerships. Fans claimed that while Matt publicly said the $3.5 million sale was for future development, there were inconsistencies in how profits and property rights were reported. Screenshots and unofficial documents began surfacing, with some alleging Caryn had used her position as Matt's partner and former farm employee to influence contracts or secure personal financial gain. The timeline of alleged wrongdoing became a major talking point online. It reportedly started around the time Caryn transitioned from being Matt's assistant and pumpkin season coordinator into his full-time romantic partner. Observers noted that this shift coincided with a number of quiet business restructurings, including new LLCs and promotional deals under Roloff Farms' name. As these business ties evolved, some insiders suggested Caryn blurred the line between professional and personal benefit, using her influence to shape public perception while consolidating power behind the scenes. By the mid-2020s, accusations had escalated beyond fan speculation. Internet sleuths pointed to suspicious filings, discrepancies in property tax reports, and even claims that certain investors felt misled about their potential involvement with Roloff Farms events or real estate expansions. None of these claims were proven in court, but the sheer volume of online chatter painted a damning picture. For many, it wasn't just about legality, it was about trust. The same woman once seen as Matt's loving partner was now being portrayed as the architect of a quiet empire built on half-truths. TLC, the network that made Caryn a household name, reportedly began to take notice. Internal discussions allegedly surfaced about whether her growing controversies could jeopardize the future of Little People, Big World. Producers were said to be concerned that ongoing allegations, whether true or not, might taint the wholesome image of the show. After all, LPBW had long thrived on themes of family, honesty, and overcoming challenges together. But the headlines surrounding Caryn painted a different story, one filled with betrayal, greed, and manipulation. Behind closed doors, Caryn was reportedly advised to limit her social media appearances and avoid public comment. Her once active Instagram, filled with photos of happy days on the farm and family events, suddenly went quiet. Fans noticed. Rumors exploded that she'd been silenced by legal counsel or pressured by the network to stay out of the spotlight. Every absence from an episode, every vague caption, became fuel for speculation. Had TLC already begun phasing her out? As the months went on, public opinion fractured even further. Some defended Caryn, insisting the fraud talk was nothing more than fan fiction fueled by jealousy and bitterness toward her relationship with Matt. Others believed the silence was telling, that if there was truly nothing to hide, she'd be out there setting the record straight. Meanwhile, several online entertainment blogs began referring to her as the most controversial woman in LPBW history. By this point, Caryn's reputation was in free fall. Once praised for her charm and charisma, she was now the subject of online hate campaigns and viral TikToks analyzing every move she made. Sponsors reportedly began backing away from collaborations tied to her image, and insiders hinted that the network was quietly reviewing her contract renewal. The pressure wasn't just professional, it was personal too. Friends close to Caryn allegedly described her as tired, defensive, and withdrawn, struggling to cope with the avalanche of negativity. Whether or not the allegations held weight, their impact was undeniable. Caryn's public persona, once built on warmth and relatability, had been shattered. In the court of public opinion, she was already guilty. TLC executives, keenly aware of the audience backlash, were forced to make difficult choices about the show's future. Behind the cameras, discussions reportedly focused on damage control. Would keeping Caryn be worth the risk, or was it time to let her go? As the dust began to settle, one thing was certain. Caryn Chandler was no longer the confident woman who first walked into Roloff Farms with a clipboard and a smile. She was now a polarizing figure at the center of one of TLC's most dramatic scandals. The story that began as a workplace romance had evolved into something much darker. A cautionary tale of how fame, money, and ambition can turn even the most private love story into a public battlefield. And as whispers of legal intervention and contract reevaluation continued to circulate, fans couldn't help but wonder, would this finally be the end of Caryn Chandler's reality TV reign? When the truth finally came to light, or at least, when enough smoke surrounded Caryn Chandler's name that the world assumed fire, The fallout was immediate and devastating. The Roloff brand, once a wholesome symbol of family unity, resilience, and small-town charm, suddenly looked fractured, commercialized, and tainted by scandal. What had started as whispers about questionable deals and hidden motives turned into headlines that painted Caryn as the villain in a story fans once cherished. Roloff Farms, which had long stood as a beacon of community and tradition, was now overshadowed by legal speculation and public distrust. Visitors to the farm began noticing the change: fewer smiles, fewer open tour, and more talk of lawsuits and property disputes. What was once the pride of Oregon's countryside became a symbol of controversy. Longtime fans couldn't help but wonder, had the show gone too far in blurring the lines between family and fame? For Matt Roloff, the emotional toll was undeniable. Publicly, he stood by Caryn, defending her integrity and calling the accusations blown out of proportion. But those close to the couple claimed otherwise. Tension grew behind closed doors, with Matt torn between loyalty to the woman he loved and the legacy he built for decades. His children, particularly Zach and Jeremy, reportedly distanced themselves further, unwilling to get dragged into the chaos. Zach, who had already cut back his involvement with the farm, seemed especially hurt. Sources close to the family suggested that Zach viewed the scandal as confirmation of everything he had feared about Caryn's role in their family's business affairs. Tori, ever protective of her husband and kids, made subtle but noticeable moves to separate her family from the public drama. Her social media posts, once filled with cheerful farm visits, became quieter, more private, almost like a digital retreat. Even Amy Roloff, who once shared her own complicated history with Matt, could not avoid being pulled into the narrative. While she refrained from publicly attacking Caryn, her silence spoke volumes. Fans interpreted it as quiet disapproval, an unspoken "I told you so" from someone who had seen the warning signs long before anyone else dared to admit them. In the media, the response was relentless. Tabloids ran daily updates about Caryn's alleged fraud investigations and the couple's strained relationship. Former friends and ex-colleagues began sharing stories, some defending her as misunderstood, others claiming she had long manipulated her way into Matt's empire. Social media became a battleground. Hashtags like "Justice for Caryn" and "Protect the Roloffs" trended simultaneously, symbolizing just how divided the fanbase had become. And then came the sponsors. TLC's silence was deafening. Behind the scenes, discussions reportedly intensified about whether Caryn's continued involvement could hurt the network's reputation. Advertisers, wary of being linked to controversy, began pulling back. What was once a guaranteed ratings juggernaut started showing cracks: lower viewership, waning interest, and whispers of cancellation. Caryn's personal life also took a nosedive. Once admired as Matt's loving partner and a stepmother figure to his kids, she was now portrayed as the woman who dismantled everything the Roloff name stood for. Friends who once defended her reportedly began to keep their distance. Invitations disappeared, business opportunities evaporated, and even public outings became sources of gossip and confrontation. But perhaps the most heartbreaking part of it all was watching Caryn herself unravel under the weight of it. Insiders described her as a woman broken by her own ambition, haunted by the backlash she never saw coming. Those closest to her said she spent weeks avoiding cameras, barely speaking to the press, and fighting to maintain some sense of normalcy. Could she ever make a comeback? That's the question that still lingers. For some fans, redemption might be possible. After all, reality television has a long history of turning villains into comeback stories. But for others, the damage is simply too deep. They argue that Caryn's alleged deceit and manipulation weren't just bad choices, they were betrayals that reshaped the entire Roloff legacy. As of now, the Roloff name continues to carry the weight of her scandal. Caryn's once bright image, smiling beside Matt in pumpkin fields, greeting fans at the farm gates, has been replaced by the shadow of a woman many now see as the catalyst for the family's unraveling. Whether she fades quietly into obscurity or attempts to rebuild her reputation, one truth remains: the Roloff brand will never be the same again. And for Caryn Chandler, the woman who rose from a farm manager to a central figure in one of reality TV's most iconic families, the question isn't just what went wrong, it's whether the world will ever let her forget it. From her humble beginnings as a dedicated farm employee to becoming one of the most talked about figures in the Little People, Big World universe, Caryn Chandler's story was once a tale of ambition, romance, and transformation. She stepped into the Roloff world with quiet confidence, helping manage the family's thriving pumpkin season and slowly earning Matt Roloff's trust and heart. For years, she stood by his side as the farm evolved, as relationships fractured, and as the cameras captured every smile, every decision, and every consequence. But as the lights of fame burned brighter, so too did the shadows they cast. What began as a love story soon became entangled with whispers of manipulation, greed, and deceit. The same woman once praised for her loyalty and dedication found herself at the center of controversy, accused of controlling narratives, influencing business deals, and allegedly prioritizing wealth and power over integrity. Her downfall wasn't sudden, it was a slow unraveling. Each public misstep, each rumor, and each fractured bond chipped away at the image she had worked so hard to build. The fraud allegations became the final blow, transforming Caryn from a beloved partner and public figure into a cautionary tale about what happens when ambition crosses moral lines. In the end, Caryn Chandler's story reflects more than just one woman's collapse. It mirrors the dangerous intersection of love, greed, and fame. The pursuit of a perfect life under the bright glare of reality TV can twist even the purest intentions. Caryn may have gained influence, status, and love, but in the process, she lost the one thing she couldn't buy: trust. Her rise and fall serve as a stark reminder that behind every smile on camera, there's a story untold, a battle between truth and illusion, between what's shown and what's hidden. And sometimes those illusions crumble faster than anyone expects. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.